The Entrepreneurial Hour is a weekly radio talk show hosted by Stephanie Cates and Robert Gultz that includes local South Florida business owners, subject matter experts, and industry leaders that recognize the need to share their knowledge with other businesses to help them start and grow their business. Join us Tuesday mornings, 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, online at Radio Unilatina USA. Follow us on social media at #The Entrepreneurial Hour.
It's Wednesday, and we're here with the Entrepreneurial Hour.
Not Wednesday. It's Tuesday.
Oh, it's Tuesday. I'm losing days.
Want it to be
Remember, we just had the Miramar Pembroke Pines Regional. We always have the Entrepreneurial Hour after the breakfast.
I don't know why I said Wednesday. Well, you're here with Robert Gultz and Stephanie Cates, your hosts. And today we're going to talk about a hot topic. This is my favorite topic of any topic in business.
Wait, hot.
Yeah, in that way too.
I brought my water.
We're here with Lisa Perez with HBL Resources Inc. She's going to talk to us.
Human resources.
HBL resources.
Yeah, I mean resources it's human resources. How to deal with people,
I
Robert.
gotta tell you, this is
Need this.
if there is an area that I am weakest in, this is
As
it.
if we didn't know that, Lisa.
So we'll have a lot of examples in today's show, folks.
Yes, remember when Robert did? Yes, and remember when Robert said, and
it's hard to look the other way.
Okay, so let's get away from all the Robert stuff. Welcome, Lisa, to the show.
Thank you for having me, Robert and Stephanie. I appreciate it.
So, Lisa, how long have you been doing human resources?
Well, 27 years. It'll be 28 in January, and I've had HBL Resources for 7 of those 27 years. So
you must see a lot of big changes in the human resource arena, especially with, the way... Gosh, my grandfather was treated as an employee.
When we
my
were
grandmother.
When we were personnel.
Exactly. Even the way I've been in the workforce 40 some years, and therefore I've seen a lot of changes. And can you tell me some of the?
Oh gosh, absolutely. I mean, even just the name of the industry has changed from personnel, when really all we did was hire and fire people. And one of the things I love about human resources is that it changes so much. So it's always new regulations, new rules to comply with. So it's a constantly growing and constantly changing. Just the name alone, even in 1986, which was not too far ago, they enacted IRCA. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit, but you see regulations change all the time.
Urkel, wasn't he on a TV show?
He was on a TV show.
with the big pants or something. Yeah, okay.
Has a lot to do with immigration. We're seeing a lot of right now. So it's changed vastly, and
I knew that this was timely to bring you on, especially beginning of the year,
great
and
time
people looking at their business models.
Great time to make the right changes if need be. So
I would like to go back in history.
Yes, I'm sure you will.
That is where I feel more comfortable with personnel and staffing and all that.
When you can hire and fire at will.
When I can hire and fire at will, I can. Thank God I live in the great state of Florida that it is an at-will state.
Don't kid yourself. The law doesn't see it that way.
Well, and I will tell you, you must love Mad Men then when, that whole, I had a hard time when the first season, when they were treating those women that way, when I don't think I can watch this show because I want to fix everything they're doing.
Absolutely.
So
I've seen a lot with that too, the Me Too movement, and everything that brings a lot of,
Me too.
The sexual harassment, the fact that we're seeing it much more prevalent, and it's always been there. We just have it in the spotlight now.
Well, and the bullying, and I see that corporations are now looking at management saying, "Are you mentoring? Are you bullying? How are you treating your employees?" Because there's now suits about that.
Correct.
If you start yelling and picking on people,
what
they see
has this world come to?
Yeah.
Robert, that's why you have Angie.
Try to keep you in line.
And I think she keeps him in line.
She does.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
She does. I probably have a good claim against her.
The other way around.
For the other way around. I don't know if we have that.
It happens that way too. You never know.
So to get on to some questions here, because we've all had HR nightmares. I'm sure that you've worked for companies and
I am the HR nightmare for most companies.
That's why
Lisa ever since I met Lisa, every time she sees me deal with somebody, she goes,
I shake my head. Then tell them what to do.
If any training you need, it's from me, Robert. That's what she says.
So let me go with the first question here that I thought of when I was thinking about HR is, could you tell our audience today, because you said that it's changed a lot, but today, snapshot, what does the HR department for a business look like?
Okay. Well, sometimes that department could be a department of one, right? So it's either
that was going to be my next question.
A representative, but they deal with everything like before, staffing, recruitment. I think where we see HR going is much more strategic. We're involved with compensation and benefits planning. We're doing training and development. We're bringing in, everything for employees, their managers, the leaders, and even the C-suite as well. So
what?
The C-suite, that corporate suite, those senior level.
That just sounds, in my office, that's a bad term I cannot use, is what I've been told. The C-suite.
Yeah, the C-suite is up in the...
Wow.
That was in 1970.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so not that far back.
I was going to say the suite. Well, is that like the audition couch?
Yeah. Well, and back then it was.
Yes, exactly.
Well, not too far back then. What we're seeing,
unfortunately,
today, So a lot more broader, but a lot more strategic roles. I think looking ahead, looking at the future of the organization, and making the changes with organizational development to get that company or get that organization there in time.
I think that a lot of people think, Robert, you're a one-person business, right? Or
Correct.
Do you have other employees?
Oh no, I have a for my personal business. I have other employees.
Okay, so let's use Robert's company, and he's the owner, and he's got some employees. Are your employees 1099 or are they actual employees?
I have both.
Okay, so what would someone like him need to be compliant with HR, or what would you need to have?
Yeah, I think that for small businesses such as that, I think the first thing is to know what does constitute an independent contractor that would be qualified as a 1099 versus an employee. There's a lot of behavioral control, financial control.
Wait a minute. No. If I just say you're going to be an independent and I tell you, here's your work schedule and this is what you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make you an independent contractor?
Those two things alone would not make it an independent contractor because you're mandating their schedule. You're indicating what they'll be paid. You might be even tracking their hours. So this is something
for
we
somebody
audit
like me, an independent contractor is much safer than actual staff people. My employees would tell you that.
Until the government comes knocking. Yeah. And then you could see some pretty serious fines, back pay, things of that nature.
So let's let me
Let's
back
dive-
up and
dive in.
say, what is the difference between because it sounds to me like half the people around here, if they say, yeah, I have to be at work by 9 and I'm an independent contractor. Well, why?
It's an extensive test. And the interesting thing is the IRS has one test and the Department of Labor has another. And of course, they don't talk. I think that's changing now. They're starting to compare notes. But you've got independent control, right? Does that 1099 have other businesses that they're working for? Or is your organization the only stream of, quote, revenue that they have? Are you mandating what they'll be paid, whether that's per day, per hour, per piece? Or do they have the ability to set their own hours and rates per project and things of that nature? So there's a complete guide. I even brought it because I knew this topic would come up, and that the IRS says, and it says independent contractor or employee, and your viewers and listeners can Google it, publication 1779 of the IRS, one of the best resources that I provide to my clients when we're auditing this.
And it is tough because when we went through our audit with the IRS, Angie at our office at the chamber, she's a 1099 and they wanted to argue it.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, you know what? She makes up her own hours. Does she put in 30, 40 hours? She does. But those are her hours. Like if she said she didn't want to come to a breakfast, I cannot control that.
Right.
And it has.
And she does have other clients too.
And she has other clients. And so for an employer, a 1099 has been very hard for me because I do like that control aspect to do things. But in other certain circumstances, it works out very well for me because if I don't have work, I don't have to worry about that. Also, the relationship I have with my 1099s is much different than my staffing relationship.
Of course.
So
you can discipline them. You can ensure that they're following what rules, regulations the organization has, things of that nature. But yeah, this is one of the biggest things I see that's not in compliance. And the healthcare, home healthcare particularly, is under fire quite a bit on this particular regulation. There's a lot of independent contractors that really are employees when you look at the Department of Labor and the IRS guidelines. So, and that could cause quite a bit of back pay that would be the result, because oftentimes maybe someone will get hurt in the course of the job. They go to file for workers' comp, and guess what? You don't have workers' comp. Why? Your employer or the individual who's paying you as a 1099 does not pay those for the state insurance or the social security benefits or the unemployment benefits. They go to file for unemployment, suddenly red flag. So it's very important to make sure that you are classifying.
Well, I see it in the realty industry for those realty companies that are very aggressive. They start saying, oh, you have to come to staff meeting every week this week. And by the way, you have to do X amount of community service hours if they're doing an expo. No.
Or requiring reports back to the organization. So it's a very extensive list.
Yeah,
that publication.
I worked as a real estate agent in Long Island, New York, many moons ago. Let me say
Fellow
it right.
New Yorker.
Long Island.
Long Island.
With the accent on the G.
Yeah.
And I remember my broker used to have what they call an up board, who was at the top for the next walk-in or phone call or whatever. And I remember very clearly one time somebody walked in the door and the front receptionist took their cards and said, just a moment, please, walked through our area and literally pulled the up board and threw it under somebody's desk. And I was like, what the heck was that? And I asked her and she says, well, the up board would constitute that you're all employees. And I went, hell, I'm going to put that thing back up.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Because the moment they saw that, they could say these are all your employees and not 1099s. I had a very interesting a situation happened in Colorado Springs where I was doing merchant services. A friend of a friend called me and said, my hairstylist has got a huge problem. The IRS showed up and said that he is, they owe like $8,000 in back workman's compensation. Right. Because he had I can't remember the name of the salon, but he had a salon and all these booths, but he had one credit card machine with the name of his company on it. So everybody was processing. And then at the end of each week, his accountant would write a check minus 5% to back to the people. Wow. Then any product sold, they would have to write what was sold on the products and for commissions and stuff. Anyway, that constituted him being an employer and employer of those people. And how many booths do we see out there today? How many people don't realize that and the only the only tweak we did was to keep the credit card machine, and then we gave each one of the booth users their own
access.
account that went into their
They do
bank,
their own accounting.
and then from that point forward, they said, now you're completely
Right. That's
So we came in this first quarter talking about a lot of different things, and what we want to do is when we come back, let's get a little bit more specific and put some outlines on some of this stuff.
Sure.
For the second portion of our show today. You are with the Entrepreneurial. We'll be back in just a moment.
Unilatina International College with campus in Miramar, Florida is a boutique college with focus on entrepreneurship. UIC offers associate and bachelor degree programs in business, tourism, and communications and media. Associate degree students develop their business plan while studying at UIC. Dream, learn, and grow. Join now our business incubator. Learn more at unilatina.edu or call 954-607-4344.
The Entrepreneurial Hour is sponsored by the Miramar Pembroke Pines Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Weston Florida Chamber of Commerce, and the Pembroke Park West Park Chamber of Commerce.
Unilatina International College with campus in Miramar, Florida is a boutique college with an applied, cutting-edge, holistic education model. Business, tourism, and communication students not only develop their field intellectual skills, but are also empowered to become holistic professionals, human beings through yoga, self-empowerment, holistic human development courses, and more. Sign up to become a holistic professional at unilatina.edu or call 954-607-4344.
The Entrepreneurial Hour, shining light on the Tri-Chamber members.
We are back. You know what? Since we're talking about HR and that, I just have to say today, and I've said it probably on some of the other shows. There are so many other things I'd like to say. Lisa, is that safe? Is that safe, Lisa, to say?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're not going to say you're the most. No, you're a sweet
So,
guy.
Lisa, if I start talking about more things,
Then we're going to say,
Okay.
ouch. In AT&T, they told us if it was an uncomfortable discussion, you were supposed to go, ouch. And then everybody was supposed to shut up. Lisa,
Yes.
we started talking about who needs HR. I asked you just as we were in break, what about a husband and wife team that one or the two or both of them are taking salaries?
Right.
So they're considered employees.
Right.
How does that change the dynamic of of a
Independent versus
business?
employee.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
really depends on the business relationship between those married individuals. Are they both equal partners? Then that would constitute, a partnership. Is one employee truly an employee? Does one have full authority to direct their work? Do they not have any decision-making ability? Things of that nature. So that's the first question is it truly a partnership when both are managing, directing the business, have financial control, both take a draw, if you will, right? If it's a corporation, that's corporation, that kind of thing. And then if it's an employee situation, well, then that individual needs to be paid as an employee, because when you are an employee, there's, FICA taxes and Social Security and workers' compensation and all of those things. So whereas if they're partners, they may be exempt from workers' compensation. So it's a very complex thing, but it starts by the nature of that relationship and what is that partnership agreement.
Is that one of the consulting things you do with businesses to help them kind of wade
Figure
through
it
that?
out.
Yeah, figure it out.
Yes, we've done plenty of audits for small businesses, even recently, particularly with the topic we spoke about before the break, the independent contractor or employee, to set employers up to do it the right way. If I audit a company and see that the relationship should be an employee, but they ask me to set up an independent contractor, I would decline that project, because that's not going with the letter of the law, if you will. So I want to set them up for success, not for failure.
Well, and ultimately, if you're the one giving them the advice,
That's right.
they
I
didn't
do
come
hold
back on-
insurance, and I don't want anybody coming after mine either.
exactly. So,
But you also asked, how many people, right? What size of business? And I've worked with employers that, again, have one individual and they're looking to hire. So they need that infrastructure development. They need to know how to recruit. They need to know where to go. They need to know what questions to ask and not to ask so that they don't get themselves in trouble. And then that sweet spot's usually like 50 to 150. You can still manage it internally so long as you have one designated to the role and educated in the role. Once you get over about 125, 150, you might want want to consider bringing it in-house and having a designated full-time person, because the laws get a little bit more complex the more employees you add to your company.
So you're saying up to 150, an outside consultant would work?
Absolutely. And even in some cases, depending on what kind of internal support you have, a consultant might still work as long as there's that point person, on site, and then get that subject matter expert, that more level of expertise outsourced. So, but that's the ideal.
We've had a few business people here and at the conference that said that they're small businesses and they kind of do the hiring and training and I'm just not so sure. Is there a handbook, or is there something that people have to have, like by law? You must show, on the back of the bathroom doors it says employment laws or whatever it is by the state or federal,
right?
And it's got to be posted.
It's an all-in-one poster.
Yeah. If you're hurt on the job, all these kinds of
comp.
Exactly. Yeah. So is there something like that for HR, like a
manual?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called all of the different websites. You've got the DOL website, Department of Labor, OSHA website. There's not one comprehensive. SHRM is a great website. That's the Society for Human Resource Management.org. You can find a lot there, but really it is kind of pick and choose and pick it apart and kind of have to know.
But how do you know what
it's not comprehensive?
You need? How do you know? How does Robert know to make a manual just for his company based on what they do?
Correct.
Or don't do?
It could be, again, a consultant, a subject matter expert. It could be an employment attorney who can create a HR policy and procedure manual that keeps it all together.
That?
We do that.
Okay.
We do offer that says, okay, here company A, you're under 50 employees. Here's your HR policy and procedure manual, or your employee manual. And here, employer B, who's over 100 people, this is what you need to comply with. Because again, based on how large your organization is in terms of employee size, that's what dictates what laws you must comply with.
So, Lisa.
And there's great resources, SBA.gov, but you still have to kind of pick it apart.
Most people, when they talk about HR, they think of just the hiring and firing or lawsuit stuff.
Right. The risk.
Can you give us a listing of all the different services, and don't go into detail of any of them because we'll go into detail a little bit later, but all of that, because, when you think back 1950s, HR was the hiring and firing, and it wasn't a major, it was keeping files on every employee.
And you still have to have that.
Yeah, you still have to have that. But it's much more in depth what you go.
Correct.
So can you go through that list of what a good HR person would be doing in a normal office?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. It always depends on what the size of the organization is, but even with one employee, there's about 14 or 15 different federal laws that individual needs to know. I think one of the most important in record keeping is the I-9 form. It's the federal form that says who that employee is, right? It establishes their identity, but it also establishes their right to work in the United States. That is like gold, right? That is the number one thing you want in that employee file. Obviously, you need that W-4 as well, so that the W-4 to create the W-2 at the end of the year, all the W's.
Yeah,
so
that's going a little bit more.
Documents.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at that, the documents, but just the hiring. So for you, I'm going to go through the basics that I know of. Hiring. Discipline.
Yes.
Training.
Right. Retention. Benefit administration.
All that stuff. There's a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you go through that list? Because again, a lot of people just go, oh, the HR person is just hiring.
Oh,
but there's so much more.
What human resources actually.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Oh, gosh. Okay. So everything from the recruitment, the policy and procedure compliance, the legal compliance is the bigger piece of it all. Performance management.
Legal by who? By the federal?
By federal, state, and local, yes, because even Broward County and Miami-Dade County has a wage theft ordinance, right? So that is something that isn't federally mandated.
Wage theft?
But
You mean
it's a wage theft. It mandates exactly how long an employer has to pay wages. It mandates that complete thing. I mean, that's the biggest piece of it, is if you didn't get paid timely and maybe you've got back wages that are due, it mandates how long an employer has to pay those wages, and it's an extensive. It started in Miami-Dade County, and then Broward enacted it thereafter. So there's not only federal right? That all employers need to comply with. There's state of Florida, and then there's county. And Miami-Dade has even a domestic violence leave act. So you've got to be aware of where you are doing business, and there may be even city ordinances as well. So, so compliance, right, with federal, state, local, and city level training, development. And training could be just that first conversation that you have with a new hire, right? That says, here's who we are, here's what we're all about, here's where the clock is, right? Training could also be high level with sexual harassment, OSHA, right? All the safety and health administration regulations. So it's a lot broader than just the hiring and firing. And
that's where probably a lot of our individual small businesses don't realize. And you and I have had the conversation over the years that many organizations that think small businesses, maybe mom and pops that are out there, don't have policy and procedures manuals. They don't have the things that should be written down somewhere in there. And those are good reasons for two. One, for consistency, but also for longevity of the business.
Correct. It's a stable foundation.
Yes.
For sure. I've walked into area restaurants, I won't be naming any, who, may have a spill of bodily fluids, if you know what I mean, and they're cleaning up with a mop. OSHA would not like that too much. There is a proper way to handle biohazardous material, not just in medical, but in restaurants as well. So that's something
I think restaurants are one of the biggest, probably. I have a friend who I met a long time ago, and she actually is an HR professor at University of Miami.
Okay.
And she was telling me that restaurants are probably the ones that don't think, well, first of all, they want everybody to be a 1099 when in reality they've got shifts and they're, secondly, they want to mandate their tips. They want to do stuff with that.
Correct.
They want to decide how they get distributed, which again,
you got to be careful with that. That's a whole nother.
Lastly, they're not
an hour.
Right. And they when it's time and a half and overtime, they're like, if you want a job, you're just going to get your regular pay. And the biggest thing also is the fact that they're not told they have any rules or regulations.
Correct.
Because again, we are in South Florida.
They may not be aware.
60% are undocumented.
Right.
Many of them are working in the back in the kitchen where, they ring a bell and everybody's out the back door, I suppose, if ICE shows up.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of problems that go on with the restaurants, and it can be shut down very quickly. If they're caught with any that I just mentioned. So let's talk about immigration being one of the big problems here.
Actually, how about if we do it right after our break?
Oh, okay.
Well,
and
that's
we'll go into that. It'll be. We're going to take it right now.
Okay, we're going to take it right now, and we'll have 3 minutes later.
So that's
not that I'm controlling the show or anything, folks. Just want to let you all know.
No, we would never think that. We would never think that.
Jeez, cracking the whip with Marcella, huh?
It's a man's.
Uni Latina International College offers an English as a second language program for international students. UIC's high qualified ESL teachers help students develop and master the English speaking and comprehension skills needed for both work and pleasure. Our ESL program also focuses on cultural adaptation through fun field trips and cultural experiences. Start your journey today at unilatina.edu/ESL or call 954-607-4344.
The Entrepreneurial Hour with Stephanie Cates and Robert Goltz. The Entrepreneurial Hour is a weekly radio talk show hosted by Stephanie Cates and Robert Goltz that includes local South Florida business owners, subject matter experts, and industry leaders that recognize the need to share their knowledge with other businesses to help them start and grow their business. Join us Tuesday mornings, 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, online at Radio Unilatina USA. Follow us on social media at #The Entrepreneurial Hour.
And we're back with the Entrepreneur Hour. On my way here today, I was looking at getting some work done, and I was driving by the Home Depot over there, and I had a whole bunch of guys that volunteered to get paid cash.
Oh, okay.
And so I think I'm in compliance with that right now, and they're going to be doing some roofing and some siding, and I got them a step stool and a chair
I'll
to
make
use.
a note to get FICA, FUTA, SUTA from you later.
So
payroll taxes.
Yeah, so I'm giving them a chair to get reach the
Okay, the lights.
and stuff like that.
Lights are
Yeah.
finally going up.
Yep.
A little late.
In all seriousness, let's talk a little bit about
Yeah, to
immigration
question.
and things of that nature.
Yeah.
All joking aside, because we know those
It's a
those
serious
individuals
issue.
are out there,
Yeah.
and people go, oh well, the
Yeah.
day laborers, they can
Yeah.
do that. There's a lot of rules even with the hiring and stuff. So
Yes.
I'll pass it over to you,
And
Lisa.
I think that's that rule number 1 that we talked about before, that I-9 form, right? That is that document that is required for every employee in your company.
Remind our listeners
whether
what an
it's
I-9
one, yeah.
form is.
So the I-9 form is the document that the federal government requires employers to complete on every employee that establishes their identity as well as their ability to work in the United States, their eligibility to work in the United States. And there's documents that you need to request. You can't ask specifically which documents you want because that would be considered discriminatory, but you provide a list.
Okay.
You provide a list. It's a List A document, and a List A document provides identity and eligibility to work. Oftentimes we see a U.S. passport in there and various other documents. And then there's List B and C. That might be a driver's license and a social security card. However, there's at least 10 or 11 different documents that an employee can provide. So the expectation is that you provide them with that list and you say, I need one item from List A. If you don't have that, I need one from B and C. To ask for specific documents, oh yeah, just bring your driver's license and social security card, is discriminatory. And I see that as one of the biggest violations.
And they
that
should
might be out
match,
there.
right? The
They
names
should definitely
the
match.
names and
yes.
stuff should match. I know.
Yes, you want to make sure that the picture's not crooked or anything like that, which we see. So there's a lot of documentation. out
Also,
there.
I know a lot of employers photocopy this information.
Yes. Yes.
That legal or illegal? I've heard it both.
That is definitely a best practice.
Okay.
It is not required by the law of the I-9 form law, but it is definitely a recommendation because if you are ever audited, how would you prove the document that you saw without having it? So HBL Resources recommends its clients do make that photocopy and attach it to the I-9 form. Now, the I-9 form should also not be kept in an employee file because again, if you're ever audited, you want to be able to just provide that document, not everything else that might be in that employee file to be viewed by a government agency. So if your listeners have those I-9 forms and employee files, get them out, put them in a binder alphabetically.
What about, I can't remember the name of it, the new government program, E-Verify.
E-Verify. It's a great opportunity. It's a free opportunity for employers who don't want to guess if the document is accurate or not, don't have that specific training to know by sight, because our role is really as an employer to make a good faith effort, right? To ensure that the document is valid. We're not supposed to be immigration services. We're not supposed to be auditors and professionals. We just have to make a good faith effort. And E-Verify, because it's free to private industry and public as well, it's mandated for public, is a definite
because I know some states are making it mandated across
You'll
the board.
See it happen.
Florida has not yet.
I think you'll see in the next 5 years it be mandatory for private employers, I believe. Because
I was just going to say
audits going on, a lot of raids even.
Well, we had a raid in Denver. I used to get the Denver TV station, and it was a construction company, and there was probably 35 guys up against a fence, and the TV cameras were filming it. And the guy, they took him to court, and you saw this guy was blasted in the news, and he showed all of the people's. I have documents here that show a driver's license and whatever else it was required.
Maybe social.
And of course, they were social.
Sometimes birth certificates are
they
permitted.
were frauds.
Yeah. Right.
All of those, many of those people were frauds. And he goes, how was I supposed to know? They look exactly like the other ones. He says, here's mine. Here's this one. Tell me the difference. And this was now. So after that, E-Verify was adopted. Yes.
And you're still seeing a lot of raids. There was just a really big one in Ohio and in Texas recently. I believe there was over 150 undocumented individuals for an organization that had about 590 or so.
And the companies are held liable for this. They sue them. They're done.
Was asked to pay over $400,000 in penalties and fines because they had been a repeated employer as well. But you do see fines that happen as well, whether it's the first time offense or repeated. Obviously, with repeated offenses, it's a lot more extensive. But you can be fined first time for infractions. So that's an error, a missing form, or a missing document, or an.
So just to make sure, first of all, decide whether it's a 1099. No, before you even decide that, make sure that they have either from A or B, and C.
Right.
And that go to E-Verify to make sure that the documents are valid.
Correct. You have
before
to
you
sign up for
hire or
E-Verify.
you even do
Right.
business. What about if
Right.
it's a 1099? What if it's an independent contractor? Are you still responsible for them being legal or illegal?
No, the law does not require you to verify the ability to work in the United States. They are required to complete a W-9 form, right? And that usually has a federal ID number on there. That usually has a social security number on there if you're a sole proprietor. And with that, your organization, as a matter of policy, can request additional documents, but not complete the I-9 form, because then you've triggered the fact that you're treating them as an employee.
Okay. All right. Very good.
So W-9 would be for an independent
So let me
contractor.
just ask you, you've just said something about the cost to businesses when they don't. What other lack of policies? You know what? Before I go there,
Fines here.
I was going to go to let's wait for the fines in a minute. Yeah, I was going to say they probably all have fines,
They
but
do.
let's go ahead and now we talked about the immigration situation. It's across the United States, and
Yes.
it's an epidemic, honestly.
It is.
But what about hiring veterans or disabled individuals or older people? Listen, I had to dye my husband's hair in order for him to have a job
got that
interview.
AARP card,
I
didn't you?
know. I mean, come on, people.
Yeah, I
We're
got
still
that letter.
valid.
We had the same issue
got
here on the
that.
radio show with Stephanie's age. And we were going, wow, can we really have her on here at that
Wait a
age?
minute. I brought you
so
on
funny.
my show, buddy.
That's what Marcel is trying to let you believe.
Oh gosh. So I'm a huge advocate of hiring individuals with disabilities as well as veterans. And I don't know if your viewers, usually have a notepad in front of them. I'm hoping they're taking copious notes, but there's an organization called veteransflorida.org that works with Career Source Broward, right? The unemployment office, right? But they're now rebranding and what have you. That's a great organization that can put you in touch with grants that are available when you hire veterans. There's even tax credits available when hiring veterans, and not just for the benefit of the financial benefits, but it's just good business. These individuals have served our country. They've put their lives on their line, not only them, but their families as well. They're coming back from overseas, repatriating. So it's an important thing to reach out to those organizations that can put you in touch with veterans and hire our veterans. They've given us, in some cases, their life. It's time to give back, but it also is good business. There's some benefits and grants and things of that nature. With individuals with disabilities as well, you can reach out to organizations such as Best Buddies, Dan Marino Foundation. I mean, these are great organizations that can put you in touch with those individuals, and you're able to get tax credits because of those hires.
And the thing is for as a business person, is to think through what you're hiring people for. Veterans
the most loyal.
Yeah, veterans get a bad rap sometimes, but you know what? They've already been trained.
Correct.
And they
A lot of
know how
skilled
they're
trades.
skilled. They
Mhm.
understand
Yeah.
the hierarchy of things,
Yes.
and so they bring a whole different mindset to a business. Same thing with disabilities. If you find the right organizations that
To
can
partner
work with you.
Absolutely.
We used to work with Dan Marino Foundation. We had Allison for, 3 years, and with autism,
Right.
extreme autism,
Right.
but database entry in that. Holy gosh! You put every business, something that most of us would go, we could not sit at a computer and do.
Correct.
She did, and
an
as long
untapped
as you look
resource.
at your organization and go, this is the item I need.
Absolutely.
How do I find the right person
Right.
for
They're very
it?
linear. Mhm.
And then go,
oftentimes,
how long?
yes.
The bigger question is how long can you keep that job running
Right.
with someone who typically can do it 10 times faster
Right.
than what we call normal in
Right.
our society.
And all day long.
And all day long, and not even face them.
Right. No, they're the biggest untapped resources are veterans.
I want to go back and talk to about the veterans.
Yeah.
And back when the veterans were returning from Vietnam, Korea, and those incidents, issues, whatever we called them. Exactly.
Yeah.
They were received very, very poorly.
Yeah.
I think the United States in general has done a great job of really bringing military life to the forefront since we've really been in a skirmish fighting for almost 25, 30 years now. We've had military actively doing something somewhere in the world. And my husband was the only person I pretty much know that was non-wartime or non-skirmish time. He never really saw any action. And it has been a struggle for Dave to come back.
Thank
he
you
went
for
and
your
got
service and thank you for his service.
to come back and get the Montgomery GI Bill, which employers can help offer them as the grants that are available. He got an education for free. He went back and did
training dollars are
in
out
his
there.
40s. He went back and got his degree after retiring from the Air Force. But I will say that it was an uphill battle. And what they find is they end up opening their own shingle. They put out their own shingle. They open their own business because they're not hireable. And it's the same thing with me. I put 40
They
years.
are hireable. They're just not being hired.
I should say they are hireable, but people are concerned for some reason, and they shouldn't be. The discipline that most of our veterans have because of how they worked. You know, my husband is always 10 minutes early.
Strong work ethic.
To anything he does. And he stands at the door and he goes, are you almost ready? You know, because I drag him home, you know, I drag them. So these are really great quality employees that are sitting there just saying, I can't take any more handouts.
What's funny is the things that our businesses are yelling for the most, those soft skills, those are drilled into you in the military world. That those are the things that most that's what I hear. The number one complaint is always the soft skills. And then
can you put names on soft skills that you refer to?
I'll let Lisa talk about soft skills.
Sure. I think communication is the big one, right? We often see that, especially with the generational mix that we have in the workplace, right? We have those that are telephone driven. We have those that are email driven. We have those that are text driven, right? And that soft skill of communication itself is broad, right? So that's one soft skill. You have creative thinking, right? Critical thinking, all of those things that aren't taught academically, but are required in good, solid business and to bring an organization to that next level and to create high performing teams. Those are soft skills that often you don't tend to see.
Time management.
We do time management, and I mean, you do DISC, you know, DISC, which is the behavior, right? Personality. How do I connect with someone of a similar personality style, behavior style, communication style? Those are soft skills that often are not taught academically, but they're taught in the public sector, like workshops that Robert and I both do. So
I noticed that a lot of our veterans are returning back home. And like I said, they many times are being brought in for manual labor, pool companies or manual labor. But with many of what they've gotten, they've been community liaisons in foreign countries. Some of them speak foreign languages. Some of them, they know processes and they know logistics. You know, they're so valuable. And if we could just get them at the beginning of them coming back and give them a lot of the PTS, is that what PST, whatever the post-traumatic PTSD, and the overall depression or the environment change. Reacclimation into a real public work world or private.
And I think that, for veterans that might be listening, I think it's important that they go to places like Career Source Broward, Veterans Florida, to make sure that their resume reads, while they have that military background, skill, experience, knowledge, where does that correlate to private industry, right? I'm a hospitality rat, right? Those 20 something years prior to launching HBL was mostly hospitality. And so much of what military brings back, because of the languages, the logistics, all of those things are so great for hospitality. Doesn't pay as great. Unfortunately, we do it because we love it, but that's something important that they need to connect those two pieces.
And that's where business and education's made a big mistake in my mind over the years, is that we've gone away and we're seeing some of the issues with the veterans where people are looking and going, oh, they don't have the degree because they went out to work. The issue is anymore, degree, no one works in their degree anymore.
Exactly.
And so the issue becomes is a lot of people are doing hiring based on what the degree and stuff is, and it's more of a skill set that you're going to learn. Most of my employers, especially my big employers, always tell me I can train anybody to do anything. I have to have that mindset first to come in.
Culture.
And so we're going to take another break.
Okay.
We're at that third quarter of the hour, and you're here with the Entrepreneurial Show.
Well, we're right on schedule.
Unilatina International College with campus in Miramar, Florida is a boutique college with focus on entrepreneurship. UIC offers associate and bachelor degree programs in business, tourism, and communications and media. Associate degree students develop their business plan while studying at UIC. Dream, learn, and grow. Join now our business incubator. Learn more at unilatina.edu or call 954-607-4344.
Unilatina International College with a campus in Miramar, Florida is a boutique college with an applied cutting-edge holistic education model. Business, tourism, and communication students not only develop their field intellectual skills, but also are empowered to become holistic professionals through yoga, self-empowerment, Tai Chi courses, and more. Sign up to become a holistic professional at unilatina.edu or call 954-607-4344.
The Entrepreneurial Hour is sponsored by the Miramar Pembroke Pines Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Weston Florida Chamber of Commerce, and the Pembroke Park West Park Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, like a good speech.
Robert, we really don't want you to continue about playing Santa at the workspace, okay?
We're back.
More
I was just sitting here going, la, 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 la.
La, 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 yes. Ouch!
So we're back with the Entrepreneur Hour, talking about human resources and all that's going on. We just got done finishing talking about vets and disabled,
Yes.
and the importance of keeping them in the workforce and how to look at.
I think finding space for them. I think really saying, I want to hire a veteran. I want somebody, I want to look for skills. You know, there's no reason why a 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and a 70-year-old can't work for the same company.
Correct.
They all bring different
That's what we're
skill
seeing
sets.
anyway. Yeah.
But see, for me, it's even more so. I not about hiring. It's about hiring the right people. And the problem with most businesses is they don't know who they need to hire to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult. You go, oh, well, I'm going to hire college graduates. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do
because they're
that.
cheap.
Or you know, I'm going
Intern.
you know, our society has come to a point where we don't hire just for the knowledge and skills that people bring to the table.
Correct.
Strength.
You know, as we get larger, we start looking, and you know, when you're looking at over 150 employees, you start looking at the whole racial makeup of your thing, so you can meet compliance,
Correct.
and things of that nature. You know, it's no longer the days where you hire because of, and you don't promote because of the person being able to do the job.
Yeah.
And I know you guys want to talk a little bit about employer staff relationships next.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah,
We could go on and on with the recruitment, right?
Yeah.
right. Yeah, the recruitment in
Yeah.
itself is probably
That's a whole
another
hour
session.
show.
Yes, we'll have you back about
I love
recruitment
it. I love
because it is important. But I want to talk about, you know, what is it now? Happy wife, happy life. Well, in work, it's kind of like happy employees, good business practice, and usually a productive business. And so when there's lots of frustration and just like problems going on, crap the way, crack.
Yeah, I'm still
Crack. Excuse me.
No, we're not talking about your organization.
Yeah, no. So I'm still. I had a trainer, a gentleman teach me along. It is not my job to make my employees happy.
Oh,
And so, you know, it isn't. It's their job to be happy. And do I have to offer certain things? Absolutely. I have to offer a good wage.
You want to be an
I have to,
employer of
if I want to be
choice.
an employer, I do have to offer something, but it's not my job. And I think a lot of businesses come this way, especially when I see, you know, your McDonald's, even the banks and stuff, where's the customer service at anymore?
well, where's
where
the
is
customer
that?
service starts with having
The
customer service within the corporation.
Correct.
So as the owner of
managers-
McDonald's, the
But we're
manager,
also-
am I
Managers
being
drive that.
a
But
good
the
customer?
problem is most companies now have gone to the point that they're afraid to let go of anybody or discipline
You're getting
anybody.
fired up here.
Yeah, I know. She's jumping around if you're watching us on videos.
All right. So let's talk about a really unhappy environment.
Oh my gosh.
You have a business, you put all your love and your everything into it, and next thing you know, you got a mutiny on your hands.
Not everybody's meant to be a manager. I'm just going to put that out there. I think it starts with culture, but culture starts innately, right? You have to be that type of person that will do something as simple as give someone a pat on the back and say, hey, Stephanie, thanks for coming in a couple hours early today. I really appreciate that. What does it cost us, right? There was a survey with SHRM and a survey with Glassdoor, and it's averaging about $4,000 to $4,500 per hire, right? Depending on what your productivities are and things of that nature. So did that thank you cost you $4,000? Absolutely not. It cost you 2 seconds, right? And what does that do for your employee? That's motivation. That's morale. If your employees are happy, then they are treating your customer happy, because at the end of the day, your employee is your customer, in addition to the customer that walks through the door if you're a brick and mortar, a retailer, what have you. And that customer starts at the application, right? How many employers out there are getting an application or getting a digital application and they have nothing to say, thanks for applying, we'll get back to you, or we got it, we may not be able to say any, get back to you, but
I know
receive it.
They don't even bother.
That is that first connection that an employee has with you, and that speaks volumes for your organization. I just did an article on LinkedIn. I think you probably saw it. And it talks about that employee, that applicant, that candidate being your guest from the get-go. And if they're seeing people who don't want to work with them, well, the word is probably out that you don't get back to your employees,
right,
or your potential employees. So what are you doing to your employees?
Well, and
see, we have a couple different things at our chamber that we do. We had the pyramid aspect that every day I put who's at the top of my pyramid of doing the best.
So that's your motivation.
That was my motivation.
Right.
Everybody wants to be at the top
like
of the pyramid.
Teacher in the
no one wants to be at the bottom.
Right.
And then right now we're doing the gold star aspects of the old day. So
sometimes it's so simple things.
It's simple.
That really
just saying, hey, you got a gold star for what you did today.
So let's talk about,
and there's no cost, low cost things,
So let's, and I understand, yes, there has to be, just bringing coffee, calling in. I'm
pizza
doing a
on
coffee,
Friday.
Right? Pizza Friday, Blue Jean Day, whatever.
Right.
Things that really make people and caring about their families.
It's a culture.
But let me talk about something that's really kind of one of my pet peeves, because I've been impacted a couple of times on this. I get hired. I'm there 8 years. I'm a top rep, and I'm still making less than somebody coming right in the door is making. And I go in and say, wait a minute now, why is this person making more than I'm making? I've been here 8 years. Right. And they go, well, that's because we have to be competitive. I'm like, then I should leave. And they said, yeah, you can leave and come back. And I'm like, yeah, they've actually said, and these are huge, AT&T, TSYS, some of these huge corporations that I work for, that was their philosophy. Right. In order to be competitive, we have to offer here, but I'm down here.
Yeah.
And I'm a proven entity.
Right. I think sometimes we, and I think this is a female issue for me, that we don't take the time to know what is competitive in the role, in the job, in the career that we're in, and go and ask for that raise before that newbie comes in and creates that awareness. So
and I think it's even more than asking. I truly believe
in making sure you have that value.
Stephanie, that I believe in an employee-employer relationship. That there is, if you have the gumption, you fight for what you want. I do contracts for my employment. Always have, because I don't base it on my evaluation. I base it on my need. And you know what? If you're not willing to pay my value, there's somebody out there that's going to. But the problem is many of us don't make that move, and so we get walked on.
Yeah, no,
in that process, you go
on that door and say, "Hey, let's."
Hey, I got somebody else. Because when I do trainings for chamber execs, and they go, "Well, they're looking and they're not going to pay me enough." I'm like, tell them you're not going to work for them.
Next,
find another job and see if they're willing to counter. I find that if you're doing your job right, it's counter. But the other aspect
it's important to state
is that as an individual, you also have to realize this is what happens with a lot of employees. And you guys probably have with SHRM documents that when an employee starts after their first 2-3 years, that employee doesn't grow anymore. they just do the same thing, and then they want to raise, they want to do other things. Well,
But
the
they're
person that's
stagnated.
the person that's coming right out of college is
A
already
little bit more hungry
advanced to them because they had different training, but they're hungry.
Right.
Sometimes we just get, oh, well, we expect that
Yeah.
that raise to come through. To
Yeah.
me, there's never an expectation for a raise.
Correct.
It's hey, I'm going to negotiate that out,
That's
or
Or
You
just
know
ask
what?
for it.
Ask for
just
it.
ask for it.
Well,
I
we
think
used to
that's
get,
important.
I used to have a base salary plus the compensation
Mhm.
for sales. And that was fine because, your base salary was lower
Mhm.
and then you got compensated.
Incentivized.
And then that base salary would have what they call cost of living adjustment, 2 to 4% performance involved as well.
Right.
And then they took that away. And then it seems like corporate America, as well as local companies, keep taking away. How does that help them? I know how it helped our morale.
Right.
It's like we had more bitch and stitch,
Right.
emails and
Can you say
phone
that on the radio?
conversation. Well, I just did.
pretty much I'll say anything. So
And I see that that's cyclical. You talked about earlier, what have you seen change? I've seen that change. But of course, 2009, 10, 11, people were asking for, reduced salaries and there were no increases. You didn't see COLAs, cost of living allowances or anything like that because the economy just couldn't support it. Now I'm starting to see some interest in writing bonus packages again and instituting performance-based pay, those kinds of things that aren't even once a year anymore. They've got to be a little bit more competitive. It has to be more regular. But I'm seeing that start to come back. Maybe not in the corporate America. They're still at that. I think there was another survey about 2.73%, average in the corporate world for pay increases.
and on the employer aspect, the recession really taught us a lot that we didn't need that many employees to do the
Correct.
job anymore.
Do it a little bit
And,
leaner.
and that's
And,
There's a lot of burnout,
and
too.
computers
Mhm.
and automations
But
and
the-
systems.
Yeah.
But the bigger
There's a
thing
lot.
is, as I go back to the employee aspect, and just as I'm an employee for my customers, it's about always learning, and it is always about being competitive. What happened, I think, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we got used to having the government make the rules and regulations
Right.
of this is how standards are. You know
We
what?
can always go above those
We
standards.
can always go above those
Yeah.
standards, but we got lazy.
Right.
In the aspect that, oh, well, everybody's giving healthcare. Everybody's doing this. Well, what we found
Everybody
today,
gets a car.
yeah, everybody gets a card. It's everybody wins.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, what are you doing? Are
Exactly.
you worth the dollar I'm giving you? And if you're not, then you need to step back. But that's another thing with employees right now. And I think we're getting away from this now, is where every employee started off here and you kept working your way up into management
Right.
and leadership.
Right.
And you didn't
There's
have the
not much of a
skills
ladder
for that.
anymore, yeah.
And that
we're
ladder
seeing it
was
even
like,
faster.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how did Johnny get from the mailroom to there?
Right, because there was nobody else.
Because there's nobody else. He
Yeah.
put in the hours.
Right.
But Johnny should
To
have
be
never
noticed.
been in that leadership
Right, that's
position.
why I said not
And we
everybody
need
should
to-
be a manager. Yeah, we
So sometimes we have to look at ourselves and say, hey, you know what?
I do.
I'm always going to work the line.
Mhm.
And there's no problem with always working the
Right.
line.
I never wanted
Yeah.
to be a manager.
So-
I said, listen, I've raised my kids and I don't want to herd cats. So
Right.
I'm done.
Right.
Lisa,
Yes.
I know we got to start winding down the show here, although we did start 2 minutes late. So do we add the 2 minutes to our show? No? Yes?
She's trying to
Yeah,
negotiate
okay.
with you.
I'm negotiating. So 5 minutes? I know, but we started it. Okay. All right. I got to stop negotiating here.
Okay.
Salesperson in me here. So Lisa, tell our audience what you do what that you can do for them, how you can consult with them,
Sure.
and how they can reach you, please.
Sure. So we are, here in Miramar, but we do have clients throughout the United States. We offer pretty much like 3 streams of service, if you will. We do consulting. If you just want someone to be at the other end of the line to ask a quick question about anything employee related, benefit related, comp, strategy, whatever, we offer that HR on demand type service. And through the consulting, we also do HR audits. We'll come in, we'll take a look at where your HR is, whether it's one person or 5 people, and give you a plan on what things need to be completed for compliance purposes. That's probably one of the most valuable things for any organization. Then we have HR administration. If you need a handbook, and while it's not required by law, it is a good best practice because that's the go-to for your employees. I mean, how many times can an employee ask you, hey, when's the holidays, right? Give them that manual, that takes that off your plate and answers those questions.
Do we work all
in
day
advance.
today?
Right,
And I just want to make sure everybody knows December 25th is always the same every year.
And
Don't ask me that question
and
anymore.
January
Right.
1st.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. New Year's. And so those are foundational, right? Those are infrastructure, and that falls under our HR administration, whether it's a policy manual or things of that nature.
So you could be their HR department. You could be just a consultant.
Correct.
Or you could actually help them organize and then just
Correct.
okay.
Infrastructure development. And
Okay.
then that third stream is training and development, right? Like I said, much to what Robert does, we do behavior management, right? How do I use that knowledge of your communication and behavior style? We do generational diversity. There's a lot of clashes going on still with now the fifth generation coming into the workplace. We do that type of training, and that's to improve the
I
performance.
just say
of
it's my way or the
organization.
highway. Oh, wait a minute. That's
Right.
my
So
father.
enjoy that turnover then.
It's worked well for me.
You just like to, renew every couple of, months.
Fresh
But,
blood.
Yeah. And then we have, HR 101, right? What are the questions that we can and cannot ask during interviewing?
Do you also teach and help train people to become managers
Yes.
or be more successful
Yes.
as a manager? So someone who worked from the mailroom all the way up
Absolutely.
should contact
That
you
is
to
what
take-
we are most passionate about, because
Okay.
I always say just because I can make good widgets doesn't make me a people manager. And so the Complete Manager Makeover is a series of 6 training programs. It's interviewing, it's performance management, it's discipline. What do I have to do when I have to document someone so they can, still get correction, but walk out of your office with dignity, right? And then the DISC is one of them. That's the behavior management and the generational diversity. We believe that that's a full cycle of the employee life cycle that needs to be trained.
Well, Lisa, you have been. We're going to have her back to do
Yeah.
recruiting and then training, and so. But would you please give our audience how to reach you,
Sure.
and not only that, but your website, your phone number, and an email.
all that.
Yes,
so,
please.
hblresources.com is our website. 954-249-1202 is my direct number. I encourage everybody to get on Instagram. We did a great series on at HBL Resources that did low cost, no cost employee engagement, which is what we were talking about. So they can kind of look back at that. What else did you want? I did
Email.
the phone number. Email Lisa at hblresources.com, and HBL stands for Home Business Life, because we believe what we do can impact your home, your business, and your life. And we help
that's really great.
improve performance through engagement.
Lisa, you're just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
I wish you had been consulting with my past companies.
You can put me in contact with them today. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
It's an honor.
How about closing us out today?
Well, we had a
So-
great conversation today. Gave you a little bit of what's important. When we've been bringing you different speakers on accounting, and human resources is one of those areas that, again, it's really important for you to start creating that policy manual to create some consistency within your organization. It will help you legally also. That if you have a certain project and things, pattern of doing your work, and you know what, as much as I am probably not the HR guy of the year, and Lisa will tell me that all the time because of the
HR
things that I know.
nightmare.
I am the nightmare. You know what? It is good to have the policies and procedures and the people to talk to, and definitely for any size business to start talking about what's going on there. Next week, I'm not sure. What do we have coming up next week, Stephanie?
Actually, next week we have Justin Napola and Jackie Napola. They're both entrepreneurs, and they have businesses here locally, and they've bought and sold businesses, and they're going to be winding out our year, because after that we're going to be off until 2019.
Excellent. Well, with that, I should have an answer to a question that I have today. Is why Stephanie's shirt says oi, 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 instead of ho, 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 unless she uses it to remember what Santa Claus says herself. So we'll figure this all out, and we'll get back to you next week on that.
And thank you, Miss Marcela of
Thank you,
Unilatina
Marcela.
International College, for all of your support, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.